So many people don't ask for what they want. They simply assume. So you never get to a place of negotiation if you don't actually ask. So many people don't value their own story. They don't mind their story for their gold nuggets. And so when it comes time to selling what they have to offer, they stumble. You cannot negotiate successfully without a level of confidence, because people want to see that you believe in what you're selling.
It comes down to self-worth, and you can overcome anything as long as you have support around you and you're able to ask. What does it take to be a financially empowered woman? And what can financially empowered women do together to change the world? A shocking statistic is that around 400,000 women in Australia are at risk of homelessness, and the cause of this is the lack of education about how to build a financial foundation, starting even before we first enter the workforce and well into our retirement years. My name's Dion Payne, and I'm the founder of the Financially Empowered Women podcast. I'm passionate about ending homelessness, and as part of that passion, I chose to look at the systemic barriers that are causing homelessness for women in the first place. The Financially Empowered Women podcast is designed to bring you the best experts from around the world to increase your financial know-how and give you practical and women-specific tips to overcome the challenges that you might be facing. Challenges such as how to negotiate a better salary, demystifying super, or how to navigate a separation and ensure the assets are distributed fairly. My role is to provide you with the best information out there to change your trajectory and become a financially empowered woman, because you deserve it, and the world needs you more than ever to own your worth and help others to do the same. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Financially Empowered Women podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be here with Wendy Alexander. Wendy is an interview and career coach who helps midlife and menopausal women ditch the good, secure job narrative to claim their dream careers. Drawing from her journey of overcoming adversity, Wendy guides clients to present confidently, negotiate their worth, and create the fulfilling careers they truly desire. So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Now, I was really inspired to connect with you based on the helping women to negotiate what they want and what they're worth. And the theme that we explore in the Financially Empowered Women podcast is really about women undervaluing themselves and therefore putting themselves on the back foot when it comes to looking after themselves financially, both now and in the future in terms of retirement. So I'm really curious as to how you got into this area in the first place.
Okay, so the story goes back probably 27 years ago, 28 years ago, and it was a story of desperation and emotional and financial failure for me. I was in a relationship and the relationship ended and I lost the home. I had worked 2 or 3 jobs to get the home. We had a joint bank account. He emptied the bank accounts. It was a very acrimonious end, and I was pregnant at the time. So I suppose the motivation driving me back then was desperation. I have to support a child. I'm about to go on maternity leave. How do I handle this mess? I lost the house, it sold at a loss. There was massive debt hanging over my head. And I suppose the first thing to say is that there was all the feelings of self-esteem being dented. There was embarrassment, and there was questioning how did I considered myself a reasonably intelligent woman. I had a good job. How did this happen to me? Was the first thing. The second thing was I'm pregnant. I'm going to be on maternity leave I think I was 4.5 months pregnant at the time. So 5 months' time, I'm going to be on maternity leave, which means the income's going to stop. And so how do I get through that? And then the other thing was, what where was I responsible? How had I created this? And so I actually went into counseling. That was one of the things I did do for myself, and started to work through how I'd attracted this situation in my life, and also the trauma that came from it. I needed to process that. But while I was on maternity leave, I got a phone call from my place of employment. There was a project that was in trouble and they wanted someone to come and help them clean it up. So my baby was only 4 months old at the time, but I saw that as a first opportunity. I was like, oh, well, they need me. So here comes the negotiation, right? And so I said to them, I said, okay, I said, look, I'm not really ready to leave my child at 4 months. However, here's how we can work it. And so the first thing I negotiated was, you want me to come back early, you're going to help me work from home. So that's just 27, 28 years ago where it wasn't a thing. And they said, well, what do we need to do? I said, you need to give me access into the company so that I can, set up my meetings, dial into the office and all of that, and they did it. I was reading a lot of self-help books at the time as well. And one of the things that the theme, I was reading Wayne Dyer, Louise A., Tony Robbins, doing some of Tony Robbins' programs, all of these things, like listening to the audios and things. And the constant theme coming through was that so many people don't ask for what they want.
Mm.
They simply assume. So you never get to a place of negotiation if you don't actually ask. Yeah. And that was the theme flowing through. And I thought, well, here's my opportunity to test it, to see if I ask for what I want, if I'll get it. And I did end up negotiating. They put up everything to support me. I only went into the office on the Mondays. But here's the other thing. You need to deliver.
Absolutely.
Because negotiation is a mutual thing. Both parties have to benefit. And I recognized that I need to deliver so that I can continue to ask. Because if I don't deliver, they're going to look at me and go, well, no, this is not working for us. So you have to make it work for both you and the person you're asking for the something from, whatever that something may be.
Yeah.
And it is interesting how there's always been this conversation around men and they don't understand and this, that, and the other about women. But all my bosses were male bosses and all of them supported me. They gave me the support I needed. They got the laptops set up a certain way so I could dial into the office, all of these things. But it was probably because I didn't try and hide anything from them. Yeah. When that situation happened with the ex-partner and I suddenly found myself losing the house, and I went straight to my boss and I said, this is what's happening in my life. And his response was, you need to take 2 weeks off because you need to process this. Call me back in 2 weeks. Let's have a discussion. And towards the end, there was certain dangers around the pregnancy, probably from the stress. Yeah. And he just said to me, you probably need to go on maternity leave early. So I went on maternity leave a little bit earlier than I'd planned, but I got all the support.
But you were very competent at what you were doing, and that's why they were, and obviously you had to ask for what you needed at that time as well. And you were clear about what you needed. So that's a great negotiation tip right there. I think be very clear about what it is that you need, and don't assume that you can't get that. You've always got to ask.
That you've always got to ask. And then the other thing, the other part of negotiation that I always recommend to the people I work with is start to gather and do it throughout your life. All the areas of life where you have overcome, where you're achieving, where you're working in a different way that's getting a result. You need to record that, because a lot of people forget, or especially women, we have an ability to multitask. And so we're running a household, we supporting our partners, husbands, whatever. we getting the kids off to school. I mean, we're managing so many things, and we're running our corporate careers if we are in corporate or any kind of career. You're doing a bunch of different things. And it's rare that any of those things fall down. What does fall down is the woman, right? Our health and well-being is often sacrificed in that process, but we're naturally very good at that. But a lot of women don't look at all these different skills that they have and see that it's a natural talent, and that if it's packaged up the right way, it can be offered as a commodity to someone else. So when I start working with some of the women, especially the women who are losing confidence, and that happens during midlife and sometimes even before that. Like my situation happened at the age of 30. That dented me. But I knew I had to get help, so that's why I went to the psychologist, the counselor. It was like, there's some things you just can't do on your own. You need some support in processing it.
I just want to go back to something, because I thought that I think that it's actually really important. So one of the things that you mentioned was at the time when things were falling apart for you in your life, you were very willing to be vulnerable to the people that were around you that could support you. Oftentimes, I find that women tend to have shame around the situation and just retreat. So what's a good tip there to actually just open up to other people, because then you can let in that support?
Yeah, I think, look, I will say that sometimes it depends on who you choose to support you, because so my shame came was that I didn't share a lot of what I was going through with my family. They knew that my relationship had ended. They didn't know that the first few months of my life with my newborn, there were times where I wasn't eating because I didn't have money to eat. So I would be sitting there in this very dingy little small flat that I was able to find and afford. And I would say to myself, thank God this baby is such a good breastfeeder, because the baby was being fed.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. My parents didn't know about that for quite a while. When they found out about it, they were so upset with me.
Mm.
But I think there was a level of shame and there was a level of pride, because they knew that the relationship wasn't a good one for me. And I was stubborn. You know how it is when we're in love. And of course, once they knew, the whole family rallied around me.
Oh.
Everybody, the friends, the family. My daughter wanted for nothing, right? I was paying the bills on the flat and all of that, but suddenly the clothes were walking through the door, the outfits. She was so spoiled, and she always has been blessed like that,
That's amazing.
But I know that was something between me and them when they found out, and it hurt them. And so my advice is, don't underestimate the love of the people around you. And even if you're feeling like you've failed, which I definitely felt like I had, don't be so prideful or so let the shame of it get in the way, because the thing is, those people will rally around you, and it also opens a certain kind of connection that I don't think can ever be broken. And you always know that they feel like they could then come to you too. Because sometimes when we're so prideful, we don't realize that it stops other people, and they look at you and they think they thought I was so strong. And when it comes to negotiation, when it comes to selling yourself, when it comes to getting support, I would say blatantly, don't do what I did.
Do the opposite.
Do the opposite. Because you get through things quicker. When you have the support, you get through things quicker.
My next question is around that self-worth piece, because it seems to me that that's important when it comes to being able to negotiate. So if you have that value in yourself, it puts you in a stronger negotiation position. So
yes.
Can you talk to that?
Yep. So look, I think we get our self-worth from having a look at our life and changing the focus. So it's very easy to focus on when things go wrong. But there's also things, most of us have overcome something. You know, we've overcome everybody has had a level of trauma, or a level of challenge in their life at one point or another. So you have overcome something. And I think that's what I recognized when I was going through that. I recognized I'd lived through apartheid South Africa. Okay, big tick for surviving that and coming out of it without incredible bitterness. That wasn't the case all of my life, but as I migrated to Australia, I started to release all that tension. I'd been in that situation with my daughter's father, was a domestic violence situation. So I'd survived that. And I started to look at these things that wasn't related to my job, but that I had overcome. And so sometimes you've got to dig into your story deeper than just the professional story. And I have a resource up on my website, and it's called Mining Your Story. And mining your story is all about going through not just the patterns in your life where you are naturally talented. So it's divided into a couple of sections. And in that, one of the sections I explore with people start to dig and see where you're naturally talented. What do people come to you for advice for? And you just have this way of answering them. Like in my case, I was writing since I was a child. That's how I processed a lot of South Africa and the environment around me. And I always loved words. And so when I did my Mining Your Story, and this was one of the things I did to help me through various challenges in my life, I would always go and look at where I had something. So it was writing. The other thing that I had was helping people. I was always somehow involved in situations, like I was working in homeless shelters in Cape Town at a young age. So I saw there was a pattern. I had this pattern where I liked to help people and I love words, right? And so when I go through that process with others, it's like we identify what you're naturally good at, what people come to you for advice for, where have you overcome in life? And okay, now we identify where you've overcome, but what skills did you use to overcome? If you've been in a situation, in a domestic violence situation, any situation, a bullying situation at work, whatever, what particular skills did you use? So now you're starting to shape up those skills that are there that you probably don't even recognize are very valuable skills, right? And then we start looking to the future. If you were at Hogwarts and the magic wand was waved, what would be the dream career? Take off all the filters of, I can't do that, but it's impossible, but I haven't got the money, but this, but that, but that. You were in the magic school and you could literally wave the wand around your career. What would it look like? And why would it look? Because more importantly is, why would it look like that? Because there's always something that drives us. For me, it was always about, I was so enamored with storytelling as a child, and my father used to read Shakespeare and Jane Austen, all these things to us. And I was like, wow, I want to be that person. I want to help people with words. I want to use words. That I knew that from a young age. And so it always sort of wove a thread through my life, but I never really recognized it as something that I could use to help someone. I was like, oh yeah, I might be a novelist or I might be an author. But I noticed that because I had such a love of words, I was so drawn to it. I read a lot. I developed an ability to communicate, especially with the written word. And even when I was in corporate, I was like, their bosses are always coming to me to ask me to write their communications. They could see the way I communicated. So after a while, I'd be the person writing the project bulletins and doing all the PowerPoints, anything to do with presentation and words, I was doing it. But this is me mining my story and I actually give people examples in this process that I take them through of how I mined my own story and how I identified where there was value, where there was something that I could turn into an offering or I could do for someone else. How can you be of service with your gifts to someone else? It's kind of the question you need to answer. But before you answer that question, you do need to dig. And so many people don't value their own story. They don't mine their story for their gold nuggets. And so when it comes time to selling what they have to offer, they stumble. You cannot negotiate successfully without a level of confidence, because people want to see that you believe in what you're selling. When I re-entered the workforce, and I worked that year and a bit from home, but then I was like, I need to make more money. And I started to tap the brains of recruiters, the brains of hiring people. I would save up my money and I would take them out for a coffee and just pick their brains and ask questions. And I think it's important to do that. Find the people who can give you the answers that you need for whatever situation you're in. In my case, I wanted a better job, because that paying off that debt that I was left with was taking a while, and I was getting a little bit impatient, and I was like, I need to make more money. And so I put this figure in my head, and I was like, how do I get someone to pay me, this much more money? But I picked the brains, I got the tips and the tricks, I implemented it. You test it out. That's the other thing. I tested my strategies out for about 6 to 8 months, landed a job interview that was going to be paying me about $20,000 or $25,000 more than I was earning. I didn't get that job. Very disappointed. So here's the other thing: you're going to get the knocks, and you got to step back up from it. So I allowed myself to feel that, and then I actually went back to the recruiter and said, "Can you give me feedback? Like, what do I need to do to ace the next interview? Because I'm getting that job. I don't know how. I don't know who's going to give it to me, but I need to be confident enough. What is it?" And then they did give me the tips. They gave me strategies on how to interview better, how to make my answers concise. They said, always be aware of your audience. If you're talking to a recruiter or a hiring person or anybody who can give you an opportunity, remember, the first rule you need to remember is they're super busy people. Do not waste their time. So talk in a way that you can give them the information, but give it to them succinctly and compellingly. So the waffle and the long-windedness is what unravels everybody in interviews. If people don't learn to communicate in that succinct way, it's interpreted a number of ways. One is that you're not aware of how busy I am. You're waffling on, so you're already putting yourself on the back foot with that particular interviewer or that hiring person.
Yeah.
So one of the things I do work with people is I train women to speak succinctly. We practice. When I coach people with interviews, it is a practice thing. I'm timing them. I don't do it in the first session because I want to see how they communicate. But when we do the second session, we are starting to pull it in. We're starting to pull it in. Because what you want to do is you want to give that hiring person or that person that has the opportunity for you, the business opportunity, time to ask all the questions. If you're the one that waffles and they've got a list of 12 questions or 15 questions and you've waffled and taken up the whole 45 minutes or hour long, most people don't give you more than an hour, they haven't asked all the questions. So you're leaving them with questions in their mind. Yeah. So, it's about understanding your value, dig into the story, and then start to frame up. So you need to become very effective at framing up your nuggets into saleable commodities to somebody else. And look, a lot of people struggle with that, but that's where you go and you get the support. When I gained that success 27 years ago, people came to me, started asking me to help them because they knew my story. Some of them knew my story. They knew that I'd been rock bottom and that I had clawed my way out of it, and that within 2 years I was earning really great money and I was flying in corporate and a single mom. Like my child didn't get sacrificed in the process because I had negotiated the terms that worked for me. And so they started coming for help, and that's how the business was born. But I was still very much growing in corporate. And so I was working full-time in corporate and part-time in my career coaching business. And then the midlife came with its challenges. Menopause kicked my butt.
Well, tell me a little bit about that, because I know that you specialize in helping
Yes.
midlife women, and particularly around that, where they're not having the confidence necessarily to get the careers that they need, or to move from the careers that aren't serving them to something that's better. So what are the challenges that are facing women at this point of their lives, and how do you help them to overcome them?
I was, at the height of my corporate career, and suddenly, the memories, the brain is so foggy. And so I actually thought that I wondered, do I have early onset Alzheimer's or something, because the brain was that foggy?
Yeah.
That definitely dents your confidence, especially when you've been someone that's working in a high functioning way throughout your career. People know you for that. They know you as someone who's super efficient, super organized, get the teams running, all of the projects delivered. So you have this reputation, and all of a sudden, brain's not complying anymore.
Yeah.
Not sleeping, exacerbates that. And then I used to get hot flashes with severe nausea. So there were times I had to dash out of meetings. I'd be in a meeting and the heat would come, and I was like, oh my God. And I'm like dashing to the bathroom. All of these things unravel you, and it did me, and it does many women. So it's rare for women to not have symptoms. Some women are blessed, I say to them. I remember at one time getting so mad, I'm going, oh, those lucky bitches, because I met one or two. I was like, what? You're not even breaking out a sweat. You're just breezing through it. But that's a rare thing, right? Most of us go through some symptoms or combination of symptoms. And so it unravels you, it dents your confidence. And so when I work with women, the first thing that I prioritize with them is self-care. You have got to work out what is the ways to take care of yourself. Yeah. And for some women, it might mean you need to reduce your working hours. You need to go and have a conversation with your boss, because you need to get a lot more rest during that time. Work in different ways. We have come through a pandemic, and so we know we can work from home. Nobody can tell us again that we can't work from home. We've done it. Everybody's done it. And so it's a good time now for women to actually go and say, you know what? I think I need to work from home 3 days a week or whatever. Or even do what I did. I'm coming in on the Mondays, I'm doing all my meetings then, and then I need to work from home. Because when you work from home, when you have a flexible working environment, you can't take time to rest. You don't have to do the work between the 9 to 5. When you get to menopause, your tolerance level just lowers. And you suddenly start to look at your life and you go, you know what? I don't need to put up with this rubbish anymore. All this long hours, this high pressured roles, this high stress roles or whatever. And so that happened to me. The only part of corporate I was still loving at that stage was working with people. So I was building teams, helping them grow, often helping them grow in career space as well, not just on the projects. So that was the part of the job I still loved. Everything else, I hated. All the corporate rubbish, the posturing, everything that goes on there. I was like, my tolerance level was just lowering and lowering. And then, of course, the lack of sleep. I was exhausted all the time. And so I sat there and I did my mining your story. I did that on myself. I went back to it and I said, go and look through this mine your story and see which direction do you want to take? What's the pattern coming up again? And so the pattern that came up was I love helping people, and I decided I'm going to help women because I was going through it, and I love writing. And so I ended up, but I was fortunate. I was fortunate in that I already had an existing business. It was very part-time.
Yeah.
But I decided to take it full-time, and I exited corporate, left all of the stress. Now, I will say that sometimes when you make such big changes, you're going to go through some financial issues. I did save money for my transition. I knew I was going to make the transition. And so I saved because I was like, I don't want to put myself under financial pressure and stress. because I'm already under midlife menopausal stress.
Yeah.
And so I never advise any woman, even men that I work with, when they're wanting to make changes, I never advise people to just walk out of the job and to not consider their finances. Be smart. Make sure you've got enough money to, or if you're going to start something new, one of the things you can do is do your new career part-time. Figure out what it is that you like or that you want to do. And if you can do it on a volunteer basis, so you gain the experience in that particular field, that's a great way. They see how you communicate with other people. Like before I left corporate, I was volunteering for a group called Second Bite, and we would gather all the excess food from the markets and take them to the homeless shelters and cook. There were a bunch of big players also doing that volunteering. And I remember one of the CEOs, he approached me, he goes, I like the way you communicate with people. He goes, you looking for a job? Yeah. So this is where it can happen. And so that's why I say to people, don't think that there's no opportunity. If you go, oh, I really want to get into this field, but I don't know how to start, find a company that's doing that and see if you can volunteer your services. So you need to be open to all possibilities and not just tell yourself, I don't have the skills. No one's ever going to give me a shot, because you don't know where. And if you think you can't get a shot in a normal way, or, you know, the normal corporate ladder steps, go find an organization to volunteer. Show them how good you are. It often comes that way. For many of my clients, it's come that way.
That's incredible. And I mean, there was a lot in what you shared there, but I liked what you said about how, you know, you might find the next role in terms of volunteering and just showing up and
Yes.
you know, building those relationships outside of your career. That's really great. So I'm keen to explore with you, what would be 3 key tips that you would recommend for somebody who's in a situation where they've got a new role coming up, or they are wanting to negotiate for better pay for themselves? What are the 3 key tips that you would give them to have that confidence and have that ability to negotiate a better condition for themselves?
So the first thing is to have the evidence of your achievements. And a lot of people don't keep track of that. So when they need it, they're scratching their heads. So here's the thing. Any bit of work or piece of work that you're doing, if you've improved something, made it better, and I always say to people, ask this question of yourself, what did I make better? So maybe you came into a project, for example, and the team was struggling. And you, the person that suggested you have team bonding sessions, you had one-to-one meetings with people to try and find out where they were struggling. And you may be even the person that went and looked at training and said, you know what, we could do this training so we could get better at this particular, whatever. Start to track that. It might seem insignificant, but it is a way of showing the evidence. So, because when you're negotiating for something, you always need to show the evidence of why someone should even consider that request. Right? So the first thing is to be tracking your achievements. People don't track it. They just do it. They deliver it. And they go, oh, but that's just something I did. Well, track the context. How did it happen? And one of the ways you can track a context, and it works for resume writing, it works for your LinkedIn profile when you're really trying to show what you've done, is the current buzzword or the current framework is called the CAR framework, C-A-R, and it's identify the challenge, identify the 1, 2, or 3, no more than 3, because you don't want to overkill with information. Remember, we're talking to busy people. So the 1, 2, or 3 action steps you took, what was the result? CAR, challenge, action, result. Ask yourself, what did I make better? Frame it up in that context. Challenge, action, result. And that's how you start to gather your evidence. The second thing is to be bold enough to schedule the meeting with the person that's going to influence that outcome. You know, But be mindful, always be mindful of people's time. So don't send people this long-winded email about, I want to, what you do is you say, I would love to have a meeting. You maybe send them an email or even face-to-face. Go to the person's desk, if it's your boss, or into their office and say, I'm looking at ways that I can grow. Always frame it up like you're trying to continuously grow and learn, because there's no boss that's going to turn that down, right? So now you set the meeting, and then when you turn up, you have a conversation about, so you should also be researching which areas of the company you can head in, right? So if you say, for example, a business analyst, and you decide you want to be a project manager, you want to go that next level up, have a look around and see within the company, are there opportunities? Are there even opportunities for a junior project manager that you could start out that way? Or are there opportunities where you could, here again, volunteer, because you might have certain skills. I'm going to go volunteer on that project and maybe do just a half an hour a day on the project. Check it obviously with the boss that it's okay. Most of them are going to be okay if they're wanting you to grow. And then you walk into that meeting with your evidence of your achievements, the research you've done where you think you could go and grow, and then the opportunity. And when you're going up, because most people are going to go up, you're going to be looking for promotion. Research the market around the salaries as well and have that ready and tell them the market research, Glassdoor, Indeed gives you all the research. Those two are two good places to get market research on what current salaries, the range. So if it's a project manager, the range might be, and I'm making figures up now, at the top of my head, might be between, say, 80,000 and 120,000. And if you happen to be someone that's on 75,000, or aim in the middle. So if the range is 80 to 120,000, when you go and ask them, you ask them for 100,000. They're probably not going to give it to you, but they're going to give you something above what you've got. So you need to be the person prepared with the information. But the most important thing that you can take into a meeting like that is the evidence of what you made better. And all of us should be aiming to continually improve in our careers. That means we should always be looking for ways to make something better. And then you just use that evidence. Because I've not seen bosses, some of them will still try to negotiate you down when it comes to the money side of it, but when it comes to the growth opportunities, because sometimes you might not be asking for more money. You might be asking the company, you know what, I want to develop in AI. AI is the new thing coming through. Yeah. Would you consider paying for more? A lot of the companies will do that. Why? Because they know it's going to benefit them to have some AI expert or some person who's trained in AI. So they'll go, oh yeah, we'll put up the 10 grand for your AI training or whatever. So sometimes it's not always about money. Don't think that you only ever ask for more money. Sometimes you can ask for training. I've known people who have gotten to a place in life where they want to travel more, so they ask for 2 weeks extra off a year. Besides their 4 weeks, they go, can I have another 2 weeks? That's the negotiation they do. And they go on their 6-week trip every year and they're happy. Yeah. So negotiation is about asking for what suits you, but also in a way that suits the other person that's going to give that to you. You cannot just demand and ask with nothing on the table. You will get nothing. And in fact, they'll probably be annoyed at you because it'll come across as you demanding something of them and you have offered nothing to them in return. So your evidence is what you offer. And when it comes to, one of the great phrases to use when you're negotiating is that you're on a journey of continuous learning and growth, because they love it. They love it. They love to know that their employees are interested in growth and learning, and so they want the next opportunity. They want the next promotion, or they want to do the next lot of training that could be beneficial to them and to the company, so those are the tips to get what you want.
That's great. And I again, there was a lot in that. And the biggest thing is preparing yourself
Yes.
to be able to make that negotiation. So if you've got the evidence of what is happening in the industry around you, and you can say, well, I've actually done this, and this is why I believe that I'm worth this higher salary, which, as you said, could be salary, could be extra holiday,
Training. Yeah.
training to make yourself more valuable. I think those are great tips. Thank you for that one.
Yeah, pleasure.
So for anybody who is, who's got really great value out of this interview and knows that, they do need some additional support to be able to have that self-worth to ask for what they really deserve, and also have those work more on those negotiation tips so that again, they can get what they deserve. Where can they go? How can they work with you? Please tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so the website is probably the quickest way to find me, which is happycareerhub.com is my website. I also currently have an offer around, and so this is the book that I wrote, Internal Uprising. I don't know if you can see it.
I can. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, so it's a book I wrote about my journey through menopause and how I moved careers and changed careers. So there's an offering around that book that comes with getting the audio book, the digital book, and then there's another book that I've written called Beyond the Cubicle, and it's around all the career strategies that people can do. There's also an interview recorded where I've discussed the book with a bunch of women because I've done a number of podcasts and workshops with women, and all of that is bundled up. So that's one offering that, and one place for the women to start, right? If they want to get more insight and some strategies. But if they want to work with me, happycareerhub.com is my website. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn. So my handle on LinkedIn is Wendy A. Alexander. I couldn't get Wendy Alexander, so I had to put my middle initial in there. Wendy A. Alexander is my handle on LinkedIn. And there's a lot of daily tips. So I do articles on strategies for interviews, strategies for negotiation, writing strong resumes, and, branding yourself on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. And that's where a lot of my free information is available. So if people want to follow me there and get the daily tips, but if they want deeper level coaching, then that's done on a one-to-one basis. And they can reach out to me via the website.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for being a guest today. I know
Pleasure.
that's a lot from what you've shared, and I'm so excited to release this to the world and release this to the women in our respective audiences, because it's really valuable. And for me, I think the biggest takeaway is that it comes down to self-worth, and you can overcome anything as long as that support around you and you're able to ask.
Yes. Be bold with your ask.
Yeah.